Nickel is the theme today. Thank you for everyone's time. So what's happening in the nickel price? It's probably back to its 3 to 5 year average, but well below the 2019 highs from last year. And that's probably primarily the result of the decline in Chinese demand. Now, while the nickel prices hasn't done much, this next group of companies presenting had some of the most extraordinary share prices performances over the last 12 months. So our format today is exactly the same: 10 minutes presentation followed by 5 minutes of Q&A. First up, and it's very good timing, as the company is currently in a trading halt, we have Legend Mining, ASX code LEG, with a market cap of 360 million. The company's exploration focus is on its nickel copper Rockford project in the Fraser Range, Western Australia, with its joint venture partners and major shareholders, Creasy Group and Independence Group. The stock has had a 500% return over the last 12 months. Its CEO is Mark Wilson. Mark has been the CEO for the last 14 years. Over to you, Mark.
So thank you very much. And it's always an honour to open a session like this with a discussion about our Mawson prospect in our Rockford project in the Fraser Range. And what I personally and my whole team are so pleased about is it's been exploration success, which has been recognised by our market capitalisation rising from $100 million last year to 350 where it is today. I'm just trying to work out, Darren, that's our standard disclosure. And the corporate story of Legend, which I'm sure many of you are aware, 370 million market cap. We've got $20 million worth of options in 3 series, 150 million in September this year, 78 million in March next year, and 149 in September of 2022. Many of you would be aware that we're in a trading halt at the moment, doing a capital raise. I can't talk too much about that today because it won't be till tomorrow when we come out of that trading halt. But suffice to say that we've had a similar response to most explorers and most companies looking for money in the last month or so. And Legend's going to come out of this with almost a bulletproof treasury to prosecute our intentions at our project in the next little bit. We're quite unique amongst many juniors in that we only have one project. It's the Rockford project in the Fraser Range of WA, and we'll obviously talk a bit more about that later in the presentation. And even with 2.4 billion shares on issue, we really are incredibly tightly held, with our top 20 shareholders holding 63% of the company. They include the Creasy Group, well known to most people and certainly very identifiable with the Fraser Range. IGO, who are the only nickel copper miner in the Fraser Range at the moment. Bailey Group is a high net worth from WA, and Wilson Group's myself. And I think the significant part of this register is everybody has really paid cash for their shares. The board, quite well known in Western Australia, Michael, an accountant with a broking history currently with Canaccord. I'm a civil engineer. Derek's our technical director. IGO have the right to nominate a nominee to the board, which they are yet to exercise. And Tony Walsh, our company secretary, is well known in the fraternity. The thing about Legend is the investment case is pretty straightforward. A very experienced corporate and technical team. Our joint venture partners, major shareholders, Creasy Group, IGO. We've got a very large footprint in a sweet spot of the Fraser Zone. Nickel's the commodity, no surprise, that's what we're talking today. And it's still worth noting these transformational agreements that we did last year, because this really elevated Legend to all of the community with new deal with Creasy Group, a major capital injection from IGO. And I think what's attracted all of the Legend shareholders is our systematic approach. The Mawson discovery in December last year changed our life. And you can see from the little graph I've got with the various highlights that I've made there, from air core drilling success to a footprint to that transformational, and then really shooting the lights out with a couple of diamond holes late last year and followed up with this year. So exploration success has translated into market appreciation. I'm not sure who's yeah. So this next slide is the left-hand one is a gravity slide, the main Fraser zone. This contains Nova. It's a footprint that's analogous to the Thompson nickel belt in Canada. It's been known about and identified as a similarity by the Canadians going back into the 1960s. Key point, I guess, is for the same footprint, the Thompson belt's got 2.7 million tonnes of contained nickel, whereas there's only 300,000 in this belt to date, most of which is at Nova with a teacup at Silver Knight. Nova is the success story of Sirius, a 10 million market cap to 1.8 billion across 3 years in 2012 to 2015. And IGO, who took Sirius over, are currently producing nickel at this mine at $1.65 US a pound, selling into a market at $5.60 a pound. Even though nickel's low, this is incredibly great cash producing asset for IGO. You can see our footprint dominates that central gravity high. Those of us who are believers in this area think that this gravity ridge is the key to the mineralisation, and it hasn't come as any surprise to us that Mawson has popped up. The thing I like to emphasise here is if you want to invest in nickel and you want to invest in WA, this is the leverage play for you to invest in nickel in this state. It's a proven belt and a lot of excitement to come. On to Mawson itself. This is just more of the 3,000 square kilometres. We're not just only about Mawson, but Magnus, Octagonal, Shackleton, Worsley and Crean. And that 3,000 square K really does differentiate us a little bit from where Sirius found itself with the discovery at Nova, where they really only had 46 square kilometres to work with. We've got 3,000. Next slide, please. This is the greater Mawson area. It's 16 by 6, interpreted as clusters of intrusives. It's got so much untested geochem, geophysics, and with the holes that we've drilled recently, just massively increased the prospectivity of it. Speaking a bit to the actual Mawson success on the next slide, please. This drills down into the nose fold of a gravity high and a mag low. You can see the major drilling success that we've had in holes 8, 11, 13, 17 and 14 in particular. And if we flick to the next slide, if we could, this is a section, hole 8, the hole that we drilled in March, which ended up with 25 metres of massive sulfides. It's all in metaseds, which talks to the fact that it's been remobilised, and the size of it talks to the fact it's been squeezed off something fairly large. You can see that hole we drilled to the west, hole 10, even though it didn't hit mineralisation, it gave us a fantastic platform to look back at the mineralisation and give us guidance where to drill next. Next slide, please. Again, section 11 and 14. This is north of the section we just looked at recently. And again, you can see 21 metres of 2% nickel, 1% copper. And hole 14, we're still waiting for those assays. And the next slide gives you the section to the south of hole 8, where hole 13 was the first one that had 12 metres of massive, which we've got assays for, 2.3 and 1.3. And then hole 17, which was just announced a week or so ago, which is our best hole to date, which has got a 20-metre continuous intercept of these massive sulfides. So on to the next slide. The future, though, is really about this air core footprint that's developing out to the northeast of where we've been to date. And it'll be this footprint coupled with the gravity, which is a new survey, the results of which will be out in a week or so, which will highlight the fact that that immediate Mawson drilling we've done to date is on that southwesterly nose, and we see a lot of potential over 1 kilometre or so extending to the northeast. And I think that's really where the future of this prospect is going to come to the fore. And a summary, if I may, it's a wonderfully prospective project. The Mawson discovery has certainly upgraded it enormously. The rest of the legend story is pretty well known to everybody, and with skin in the game, we're passionate for shareholder value, and I think we're highly leveraged for success. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. I hope everyone can hear me this time. I was on mute last time. Now, there's a question about the capital raising, and I understand you can't go into details, but it's more around the reasons why. It's from Daniel. So he says, having 10 million at the end of last quarter in cash and burning around 800,000 per quarter, that would give you a long runway. Why does the management team want to raise capital here when analyst reports have been talking about the value of the business being closer to 30 cents a share? It's a good question.
Yep. Oh, it's a great question, Tim. And I guess that there's the key thing is in the first quarter of the year, we really can't work out there because of bushfire risk and all sorts of things. So that's really a soft quarter. And ever since we had this drill success in late March, the rate of spend has increased enormously. We've publicly said there we've got a budget of 8 million across the year. We're currently spending it closer to 11. And with the Jindal loan repayment getting a bit rubbery because of the COVID situation, not just across in Australia, but India as well, we just needed this capital raise to be able to continue at the accelerated rate we're going at the moment. So I think the cash flows that will come out in the June quarter will confirm, the veracity of what I'm saying there with that answer.
Okay, great. And just another question on drilling at Mawson. You've had one diamond rig out there for the last couple of months now. Given the success of the current program, when might you consider bringing in additional rigs to accelerate exploration?
It's really about understanding where you can deploy them, Tim. So technically we're not ready for it. There's logistical issues also just because we've got to cart water out there in triple road trains from Kalgoorlie, and there's a limit to how many rigs you can physically support. And again, the infrastructure that you need to pay for that support is substantial. So it's a double banger. Technically, we're not ready to double, triple the number of rigs. And secondly, there's a logistical thing that's got a cost associated with it and doesn't make any sense at the moment.
Understood. One last one. What is targeted in the 4 million budget for 2020?
Well, the budget's actually 8, Tim. So we spoke about 4 at the Mawson area and 4 regionally.
Yeah.
There's no doubt our focus is Mawson, but you know, you've got an obligation to keep the rest of it ticking, and that gives you a pipeline of projects. It wouldn't be the craziest suggestion that if we develop Mawson to a certain area, there could be interest from third parties, and obviously the rest of the area being developed along helps Legend with a future.
Right, okay, great. Well, thank you, Mark, for that presentation. Good luck with the capital raising. It's a great time to be presenting to our audience, so I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Next up, we have Galileo. We have with us the Managing Director, Brad Underwood. Code is ASX code GAL. It's got about a market cap of around $32 million. Extraordinary one-year return of 56%. The company was originally owned by the renowned prospector Mark Creasy, who retains a substantial stake in the business. It seems to be a common theme here today. Brad will provide an update on the company's significant exploration programs underway at its Fraser Range joint venture project in Western Australia. Thanks, Brad. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Tim, and thanks to everyone who's tuned in to listen. If we can just go to the next slide. It's our standard disclaimer, and the next slide shows why we believe Galileo is a great place for people to look if they're interested in nickel exploration stocks listed on the ASX. So we have a very strong cash position of 9.3 million. We were lucky enough to complete a $5 million raise during the coronavirus lockdown, and it speaks to the value that investors see in the Fraser Range. We have very high value nickel targets. We are also active at our Norseman project. All of our assets are in Western Australia, and most importantly for investors, we have a pre-discovery market valuation. That means if we are to be successful with the drilling that we have planned coming up, then we'd expect to see a significant re-rate on the market. And as Tim mentioned, Mark Creasy is the founder and major shareholder, and is very much a common theme within all those companies looking for success in the Fraser Range. So a corporate snapshot, we listed 2 years ago and we still only have 143 million shares on issue. Our market cap is around $30 million with 9 million in cash, as well as Mark Creasy as our major shareholder. We also have IGO with just under 9%. So they cornerstoned our latest raise and obviously are very active and interested in the Fraser Range. Next slide. When we listed 2 years ago, we took a strategic approach both to the commodities we're interested in and the districts that we wanted to focus on. The commodities are important because we really believe in nickel and cobalt as metals with expected higher demand in the future. We think these are long-lived metals. They're going to be around for a long time, and with changing technology, we should see an increased demand for them. As well as that, we know Western Australia very well, and we know that if we are successful in Western Australia, then the value created through any discovery will flow through to the company rather than be a jurisdictional risk from other stakeholders. So Western Australia is very much a first world jurisdiction, one of the best places to both explore and mine, and we're very happy to do business here. And on top of that, within areas specifically in Western Australia, there are world-class infrastructure, rail, road, gas pipelines, small towns, and a very well-established mining workforce. In the Fraser Range, we have a joint venture with the Creasy Group. We're working along strike from Legend Mining's Mawson prospect that Mark Wilson just spoke about. And we have our next RC program starting in July, to be followed by our first diamond drilling, which is planned after that. At Norseman, we also have an existing JORC compliant resource, mostly focused on the cobalt. So for this presentation, we will just focus on the Fraser Range and our projects there. Next slide. The Fraser Range is a very fast developing nickel province. There have been 2 resource discoveries over the past 8 years. Then we have Legend Mining's very significant massive sulfide intersections over the past 6 months. What we see with all these publicly listed discoveries is that when a drill intersection is made, there is a very quick recognition from the market of that drill intersection. We have over 600 kilometres of prospective ground in 2 zones. The southern zone is just 10 kilometres from the air highway, and the northern zone is 15 kilometres from the railway. So both of these areas, if we do make a discovery, then we expect to benefit greatly from the existing infrastructure. We're not out in the middle of the desert. This is, in Western Australian terms, a relatively well-developed location to be exploring. Next slide. And the best way to understand the potential of the Fraser Range is to look at global analogies. Canada is a first world mining jurisdiction similar to Western Australia. Around the Superior Province, which is a geologic term, which we have an equivalent for in Western Australia, there are 3 major nickel camps, and the one with a similar strike length is the Thompson Nickel Belt, the similar strike length to the Fraser Range. On the next slide, you'll see that the Thompson Nickel Belt has over 100 kilometres of strike length, more than 10 deposits. We compared that to the Fraser Range. We've got at least 150 kilometres of prospective strike length. If we combine the Nova resource with the privately owned Silver Knight deposit, what's publicly available about that resource, we have a combined resource within the Fraser Range to date of 18 million tonnes. Plus we have some very good prospects there as well. The difference between the Thompson and the Fraser Range is the amount of time and effort that has gone into those areas. The Kambalda nickel belt was discovered over 50 years ago and is still producing. Fraser Range, the first economic discovery was the Nova deposit in 2012. And I would expect to see over the next years to come, as more work is done in the Fraser Range, that more discoveries will come out. Next slide. Around our area of exploration at the Lantern Prospect, we are surrounded by IGO, the Creasy Group with their private exploration, and by Legend Mining. This is a core section of the Fraser Range. The reason it hasn't been well explored previously is that there is an amount of cover on top. That means there is sedimentary cover anywhere between 20 and 50 metres thick. Prospecting techniques, which we use in the discovery of the Kambalda belt, where rocks are essentially sticking out of the surface, don't work in this area. Next slide. So at our Lantern Prospect, we completed first pass air core drilling, came back and did our first round of RC drilling earlier this year, and were immediately able to demonstrate that we had sulfide mineralization. This is a disseminated sulfide intercept. The grades are not economic at around 0.4% nickel and 0.3% copper. But what it's telling us is that the sulfides we've encountered have a very high nickel tenor. That means that for the amount of sulfide we've intersected, there's a lot of nickel associated with it. So if we are able to define those areas that have more sulfide around this prospect, we would anticipate that the nickel grades will increase. And of course, we are looking to do that with our next round of drilling, which is scheduled for July. Next slide. Our Lantern Prospect is one of a few that we've developed in the area. We have completed a moving loop EM survey. We've defined an EM target at the north. Very similar rocks, if not exactly the same rocks as those to be found at the Nova mine site and at the Silver Knight deposit. And what we're looking for now are the accumulations of sulfide that contain enough nickel to be worth mining. We have our fixed loop EM surveys starting next week. And for us, that's the final piece in our targeting methodology that we need before we can commence drilling. Next slide. This is a quick slide on nickel targeting in the Fraser Range. It's very much the next generation of deposits where we have to look undercover for signs of mineralization. And that is a photo of the area. As Mark Wilson mentioned, during the summer period, it is prone to bushfires. This area has been burned out, but you'll see that on surface, it's mostly sand, and beneath that is sediment cover. So we need to drill beneath the sediment, give us an idea of the rock types. Once we know we have the correct rock types, we can come back with other techniques, magnetics, gravity, and in this case, electromagnetic methods. Essentially what that is doing is telling us where we have conductors and whether those conductors are related to sulfides requires drill testing, and that's what we've got planned. There's very much an untapped greenfields potential, a new nickel province, never been explored before. We've already got significant indications of mineralization, and we are looking to follow those up. Next slide. So another slide on the recon programs we've been working on. We've developed a number of other intrusions, and we'll be doing large-scale EM surveying of those later in the year. So we have a pipeline of projects from our Lantern South and Lantern North prospects, and going into Green Moon, Backwood, and Think Big later in the year. Next slide, please. One of the differences about Galileo as a junior exploration company is that exploration is genuinely our business. We spend a lot of money in ground, and since, over the 2 years since we've listed, we've completed 10 drilling programs. These are campaign-based drilling programs. Each program is designed to build on the last as we get closer and closer to those areas that have the most potential to host mineralization. We've got more air core, RC, and diamond drilling planned over the coming months. And for us, the rationale behind doing more targeted drilling campaigns is simply that it increases the chances of success. Next slide. At the southern end of the Fraser Range, we have the Empire Rose prospect. We're planning EM surveys in this area as well as at least another round of air core drilling on those areas which have yet to be tested. Next slide. And a quick slide on our Norseman project, an existing cobalt nickel laterite resource. It's very much an option on the future value of cobalt. If that price turns around in the future, we'd refocus on that resource. In the meantime, we're completing exploration for komatiite hosted nickel and some copper gold prospects. Next slide. So our final slide, a snapshot of our company. We are well funded. We have the ability to pursue those programs to cover all of the prospective ground that we have. We're highly leveraged to success. Our current market cap is $30 million. Fraser Range is a great place to be exploring. We know the potential. We know the value of deposits that can be found there. We're very much an active explorer. We have a good management team focused on making discoveries. And of course, we have our ongoing drilling programs. Next round of RC and diamond drilling is planned for July, August this year, and that'll be followed by another program later in the year. We're aiming to have success with those programs, and we'll find out in a few months. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Brad. A couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So did Legend's success in the area, the Fraser Range, kind of drive you to step up your own activities?
If we can step back a few slides, you'll see that we've been active in the area for some time. And before I had the role as managing director, I worked for the Creasy Group. And over the past 10 years, I've been very much involved. If you go back another couple of slides. Yeah, that one. Oh, sorry. Next slide.
One more.
Next, going forwards. It's got the Gantt chart at the bottom. Next one, that one. Yeah, so you'll see that we've been actively exploring the area over the course of 2019. Yeah. And remember, we only listed in 2018. These were greenfields tenements. The only data that existed was early stage magnetics. We knew they were prospective. Mark Wilson spoke about the gravity high in the Fraser Range as a way to identify those areas that have the most potential. So we knew they were prospective. We've been working over 2019. Very happy that Legend have had their success. It's really proven and opened up the prospectivity of the Northern Zone, and we hope to do the same.
Okay, and you also chose to raise some capital while you were holding cash at the time. So what was the reason for that?
It's really so we could accelerate the programs that we have. We don't have to pick and choose with our targets. Undercover exploration isn't easy and it's not cheap. And one of the issues is that because of the cost involved, we need to choose those targets to work on without a full knowledge of what we're dealing with. So it's much better to have a full treasury so that rather than pick and choose, we can just go out and do the whole lot. So we're not leaving anything to chance. We want to go and interrogate the area and really try to make a success of the whole program.
Great, thanks, Brad. Thanks again for your time. Sounds like an exciting time to be out in the Fraser Range some great success stories. So good luck out there.
Great, thanks very much.
Next up, we have Chalice Gold, which has a market cap of 325 million, ASX code CHN. We have with us the Managing Director of Chalice Gold, Alex Dorsch. It's been a great time to be a shareholder of Chalice with a 740% return this year over the last 12 months. I mean, that's just extraordinary. They also have some big names on their registry. It's called Chalice Gold. What's a gold company doing on a nickel themed presentation? Well, Chalice has a portfolio of highly prospective gold and nickel projects in premier geological terrains of Australia, as well as several investments, royalties and JV interests. So Alex, over to you. Thank you.
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, apologies for that. Thanks very much for everyone for tuning in. It's nice to, I guess, round out the third West Australian presentation for the session. It's as Tim mentioned, very recent discovery and a very exciting one for the company and its shareholders. So I'll give you a quick introduction to the company first, if I could jump forward. Our normal forward-looking statements there are available on our website. So for those who are not familiar with Chalice, we're a fairly unique company based in West Perth. We've got a proven ability to get into projects, make discoveries, really take them up the value curve, and then also divest them in a disciplined manner. We've generated a lot of value over the last decade doing that, and we've returned a good chunk of that capital directly to our shareholders. We've got a very sizable treasury. It's order of magnitude larger than most explorers. We currently have $55 million in working capital and investments, and that's really after we closed a $30 million financing a couple of weeks ago. And that really gives us the ability to take on large exploration plays. So as it says there, we've got 3 district scale precious, as well as what Tim referred to, the nickel projects in Australia. And run by a very well-credentialed team here in Perth. The next slide gives you an overview of where our premier, our key projects are. As I mentioned, 3 key projects. The one I'll focus on today is the recent discovery at Jaguar. It's a new greenfield discovery. It was high grade intercept in the very first drill hole. It's a completely new area, completely unexplored, and it's only just about an hour's drive out of Perth. The other 2 projects we are still working on and still very excited by. We've got 2 rigs running at the moment on our gold property in Victoria. We're one of the largest holders of exploration tenure in Victoria. But unfortunately, this session today is about nickel, so that's where I'll focus on today with Jaguar. So on the next slide, you'll see our corporate basics. There's a tight capital structure and a very strong financial position, as I said. Our chairman is been in the company since the IPO, owns 12% of the company, as well as one of the largest funds in the world, Franklin Templeton, based in San Francisco, also been there very long term. We've recently welcomed a number of very large institutions to the register as well, which now account for almost 20% of the register. As it says there, at about $1 a share, we're approximately 300 million market cap company, cash of about $48 million. As you can see with the price history there, it's been a transformational quarter for Chalice, going from somewhere around the 50 million market cap range now to over 300. So you can see there that was really triggered by this exciting discovery we made just outside of Perth at Jaguar. So on the next slide, this is the project, as I said, in Western Australia. As I said, high grade nickel, copper, as well as PGEs were intersected at our first drill hole. And that's not a common, something you see very frequently in the industry. It's looking like a very exciting, remarkable new discovery that we've made. I mentioned that it's an hour's drive out of the city here. That means we have exceptional access to infrastructure, including sort of port and high voltage power, highways, etc., very close to the project. So it's a very well located project for a potential base metals and precious metals mine. We were drawn to this area, as it shows there on the map on the left-hand side. We were drawn to this quite prominent magnetic feature, which we've now established is a layered mafic, ultramafic intrusive complex. So not dissimilar to the Nova discovery by Sirius in 2012. The intrusive is largely undercover though, so that meant it was very poorly explored. Essentially, there hadn't been a drill hole targeting those metals before in the area. So we completed some early stage reconnaissance work last year over the southern part of that intrusive feature, and we've named that discovery Gonville. And our first drill hole, as it says, only 3 months ago now, discovered a wide, shallow zone of high-grade mineralisation. And that really triggered us to look regionally and subsequently put in about 20 new exploration licence applications. I guess given the region hasn't been known as a nickel copper PGE province, it was largely vacant ground. So we acquired a significant foothold on the province. And now our licence holding is somewhere around the 2,000 square kilometres once you include those licence applications. On the next slide gives you a bit of a summary of the results we've seen to date. We've been drilling aggressively after our discovery hole in March. The discovery hole was the JRC 001 that intersected 33 metres at 6.5 grams palladium, 0.7 grams platinum, 1.6% nickel, 0.7% copper, and 0.1% cobalt. And even more astonishing is the fact that that intercept was made at 44 metres downhole. So typically you don't see massive sulfide like that intersected this shallow. And I guess it immediately emphasised that this is, we're looking at something very special in terms of this discovery. We did make that discovery off the back of the moving loop EM work that we'd done in 2019, and we'd established that there is not just a single EM target in this intrusive body. So what you're looking at there on the left-hand side of the page is the magnetic signature of the intrusive, and you can see that there are a number of other EM plates in the yellow all across the intrusive, and that strikes over about 1.5 kilometres and is about 700 metres wide. So we went and drilled an RC hole into each one of those targets. We subsequently discovered a new wide, again, shallow high-grade zone just to the east of the discovery. And what we noticed when we saw the assays back from all these RC holes was that essentially every single drill hole that we've drilled into the intrusion has hit elevated PGEs. So we've got getting intercepts as shown up there, like over 100 metres of sort of plus half gram per tonne PGEs, which we consider very significant and speaks to, I guess, the degree of mineralisation in this intrusive body. It's a well mineralised intrusion, and obviously we believe there's a lot more to be found. So it was a significant discovery. We've drilled now approximately 19 holes, about 4,500 metres, and really this is just the beginning of what could be a very significant new metal province for the state of Western Australia. So on the next slide gives you a bit of a zoom in of some of the work we're doing in the high grade areas. We drilled our second diamond hole down dip of the discovery zone, really to confirm its orientation. And what we noticed in that discovery zone, some quite spectacular and quite consistent high-grade mineralisation. So again, 75 metres at 6.2 grams palladium, 1.7 grams platinum, 1.7% nickel, 0.7 copper, 0.1% cobalt, again from 35 metres or so. It's quite exceptional high-grade material. In the east zone there, we've got a 40-metre wide interval of moderate grade mineralisation. And we now believe that we have essentially at least 200 metres of strike extent to that zone after we drilled our third diamond hole, JD003, 200 metres to the north. And that intersected a 17-metre wide matrix sulfide zone at 191 metres. And as yet, we haven't received assays for that hole. But not only that, that hole drilled essentially to the base of the intrusion and was still in mineralisation down at 460 metres. So what we think we have is a very large disseminated mineralization footprint. We've obviously got these zones of high grade, which need a lot more drilling to fully understand. But we have some exceptional, I guess, it is an exceptional starting point for the early stages of a discovery. And I'll point out that at the southern end of that figure there, you're looking at a 2D representation of the EM, and you'll see there's an as yet untested moving loop EM target approximately 200 meters to the south, which is our high priority target at the moment to find more high grade. On the next slide, you'll see a section of those drill holes into the discovery, as well as the east zone. You can see some of the well-preserved sulfides on the right-hand side there, as well as the width, the quite exceptional width and shallow nature of this high-grade mineralization. And as I said, we believe these zones are plunging gently to the north, and we believe we've intersected that east zone, again, 200 meters away to the north. So a lot more drilling to be done, obviously, but look, with this zone, we believe is a prolific zone and currently remains wide open, and really there's a lot of drilling ahead of us to define it. On the next slide, gives you a sense of the scale of this intrusive body. As I said, every single drill hole out of the 20 or so drill holes we've completed thus far, we have hit mineralization in all those holes. The geometry of the intrusive body is given here on the left hand side, looking above from down on the intrusive. You can see it's about 1.6 kilometers in length, about 700 meters wide, and then looking at a side on view, you can see it's approximately, or modeled to be, 650 meters deep. And it's an irregular sort of shaped body that's a very favorable geometry and when you compare it to other world-class nickel sulfide deposits globally, you can see some real analogues between this and those deposits. So our most favoured analogues are listed there: Jinchuan in China, which is the second largest nickel sulfide deposit in the world, and Kabanga in Tanzania, which is another high-grade nickel copper sulfide deposit in Tanzania. I guess probably the most exciting part is that not only is this the scale of what we have here at Gonville, very large, that is a very large intrusive body. The next step up, I guess, for us, the next stage is looking further to the north. So we have approximately 24 kilometers of strike length to this complex, which we haven't yet drilled a hole into. And if you go to the next slide, this is a planned view of what I'm talking about there. You can see the Gonville discovery, the quite discrete mag feature at the southern end of our tenure there. And you can see the magnetic sort of snakes to the northeast there, and has some other quite discrete magnetic features along that strike length. We have found that various parties sampled through that state forest area and got anomalous nickel, copper, as well as PGEs along that mag feature, which you'd have to classify as probably some of the most exciting geochemical anomalies you're likely to ever see, given what we've discovered now at the southern end of the intrusive complex. So we've got some very interesting targets there to do work on. We're working through an approval process at the moment to gain access to that state forest area, which has that green outline on that figure there. So some clearly a very large degree of upside to this project. On the next slide, a bit about PGEs. They're not that commonplace in Australia. There's no primary PGE producing mines in Australia. Their predominant use is in catalytic converters, and palladium in particular is running in a very short supply at the moment. There are very few new discoveries made, palladium discoveries made recently, and that's caused a prolonged deficit in the market, and that's sent the price very, very high. It went over $2,850 US an ounce in February of this year. So it was, if you like, a very well-timed discovery by us to make a palladium discovery in a market like this. On the next slide gives you some of the key points in the discovery. As I've emphasised, it's completely new province. These types of discoveries, particular palladium-rich discoveries, are very rare. There's only a handful of them around the world, and to find one in Western Australia, a safe jurisdiction, cannot be understated. We've got a significant regional footprint. It's all 100% owned by Chalice, so that means our holders get 100% of the uplift. It's right on Perth's doorstep, which comes with the advantages there logistically, as well as throughout exploration, as well as into mining. And we're on private land as well as state forests, so we have year-round access to complete work. On the next slide, you get a bit of a sense of what that program looks like. We're currently drilling with a diamond rig as well as an RC rig. We've just commenced our phase 2 RC program. We're shortly going to have a second RC rig arrive on site, which should take the rig count to 3. And we anticipate that we'll be drilling on this project for a very long time. Essentially, we've scoped out about a 20,000 metre RC program in phase 2. Diamond drilling will continue to target the high-grade zones we know about and continue to extend them and define them. And as well, we've started a very early mineralogy study as well as some test work on metallurgy. So we're looking at all those various ore types that we have there, the disseminated, the massive and the matrix zones, and we're starting to get some work done on those as we speak. So as well, we've got 2 rigs drilling in Victoria, as I mentioned, so there is a huge degree of upside built in to the company's activities. The next slide is just a summary, really. As I mentioned, it's a brand new discovery. It has significant scale potential. It's not something that comes around very often. We've got 2 rigs drilling on it at the moment. We're about to accept a 3rd rig, as I said. We're also exploring Victoria. We've got a 4-kilometre long greenfield gold target there. It's near Fosterville, a world-class gold mine. And we have an exceptional balance sheet to be able to do what we want to do on our projects. And I guess the team behind Chalice has shown that we've been able to do this time and time again. So that's really our selling points. And I think that summarises the company well and the investment opportunity for those looking for a new opportunity in the market.
Thanks, Alex. I mean, that is an incredible story. Moving from a market cap of 30 million to 300, and it seems like you're continuing to drill in different directions. I mean, when do you stop that exploration and that drilling, and when do you kind of move to the next stage?
Yeah, so as part of us raising $30 million, Tim, we laid out a plan as to what we thought we needed to get the project to an advanced scoping study level. And that was a roadmap really over the next sort of circa 2 years. We're looking at somewhere around sort of $15 million worth of drilling, both RC and diamond, to get us to a point where we've got a largely indicated resource. That's our near-term goal. So we'll be drilling, I would say, for at least sort of a year, 18 months, continuously on this project. And then we'll be looking to, progress mining studies as soon as we can. And that is really the purpose of us, going to the market for $30 million, was that it will be able to essentially fund us through that program, as well as give us the ability to progress the regional activities in the state forest area in parallel.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for your time. We're up, finished with time. We might move on if you don't mind.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Next up, we have Centaurus Metals. We have the CEO and Managing Director, Darren Gordon, with us. Once again, another incredible success story this year, with the stock having risen 150% over the last 12 months. We're moving outside of Australia now. Their focus as an exploration company is on the development of the advanced Jaguar nickel sulfate project located in Brazil. Correct me in my pronunciation here, Darren, but the Carajás mineral province is one of the world's premier mining addresses, hosting one of the world's largest concentration tonnages of mineral deposits. The stock code is CTM. It's got a market cap of 70 million. Darren Gordon is the CEO, as I said, and has been with the company for 11 years. Over to you. Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, good on you, Tim. Thanks for that. And thanks for everyone for taking the time to have a listen to our story. As Tim alluded to, we are located in the Carajás mineral province of northern Brazil, having acquired a very good, high quality nickel sulfide project from Vale in September last year. If we can just skip through a few slides there. go through that one and the next one. Thank you. I guess the important thing for us is that whilst we are outside of Australia, we are in a mineral province that really is world class. There are a number of very significant deposits there, and I'll touch on that in a sec on the map. When we acquired this project from Vale last year, we picked up a foreign non-JORC resource of over 40 million tonnes for 315,000 tonnes of contained metal. And there's 55,000 metres of diamond drilling already completed into this project. And you can sort of see top right there, some of that drill core now sitting in our core shed. What we've been focused on doing is looking at the high grade components of their drilling and then looking to infill around that with a view to bringing forward a JORC resource for ourselves by the end of June. And we're well on track in relation to that. So on top of the 55,000 metres that Vale drilled, we've completed about another 10,000 metres in the last 6 months, and that's all feeding into this maiden JORC resource estimate that we're currently putting together. And that resource will then become the foundation for our scoping study work, which we're looking to deliver by the end of Q3 this year. Next slide. From a corporate perspective, we've had a pretty good run in the market, and I think that's been a function of the drill success that we've had. We've hit a number of very significant high-grade zones of mineralisation. I think we've had recognition of that coming through some of the broker research, and obviously some interesting high-quality nickel investors coming onto the register, like Kerry Harmanis's group now going substantial. So the combination of all that, I think, is really starting to shine the light on this nickel sulfide project. We think it's a very significant one. You know, the management and the board have a strong participation in the company, and as of yesterday, the board and management exercised options and injected about $300,000 into the company. So everyone's really pushing forward with what we've got, and I think that's, I guess, a great opportunity in the context of where we see the nickel market going. No matter sort of where you look at it from the timing point of view, the EV thematic is really there, and I think that we are now in a position where we can really look to push our project from a development perspective right at the time where we would expect to see very significant increases in the demand for nickel, and particularly nickel sulfides. I think anyone that's looking for that PV market and class 1 nickel is really wanting to be targeting nickel sulfides rather than sort of going down the HPAL process, which is obviously a lot more capital intensive and generally outside the realms of juniors. Just skipping ahead, please. And the next one after this. Thanks. So where we're located in the Carajás, you know, coming from an Australian background, people may not be completely aware of the scale and the opportunity in this region, but there's an enormous amount of mineralisation in a relatively close proximity to one another. And just to point out a few of these on the map, the Salobo mine, sort of top there, over 1 billion tonnes of copper, producing about 300,000 ounces of gold, 250,000 tonnes of nickel. There's probably Vale's biggest copper mine in Brazil, probably second biggest IOCG deposit behind Olympic Dam globally. So you know, when you look through there, that's the Sossego mine. You've also got S11D, biggest iron ore, the highest quality iron ore mine in the world. And then you move across to where we're located out on the western portion of the Carajás. We're quite close to Onça Puma's, Vale's Onça Puma mine, where they've spent over $3 billion on building that plant and infrastructure. So you've got a region which is well developed. It's got plenty of access, good quality roads, a service centre at Parauapebas, you know, airstrip that can handle 737 jets coming into the Carajás area, plenty of power, plenty of water. So there's no impediments to actually building the project and really taking forward what we've got in front of us. Next slide. So when we picked up this project, it was really for us to go and look at where the high grade zones are in relation to the drilling that Vale had already completed. As I said, 55,000 metres of historical drilling over a 3-kilometre strike length. Very much a pattern drilling process by Vale, 100-metre line spacings, but there was very little follow-up of any of the high grade zones or where they've actually hit downhole EM conductor plates. So a combination of that has given us some very nice targets to chase, and that's really where our focus has been over the last 6 months as we've been pulling the project together. So just on the next slide, you can sort of see we've broken up that Jaguar 3-kilometre long strike into a number of deposits. Jaguar South is where we started our drilling in the southeast corner of the tenement package. We also started work on the northern deposit called Onsapreta, and have drilled some holes into a prospect called Onsa Right now we have rigs going at Jaguar Central and Jaguar North. We have 2 rigs, diamond rigs on site, really following up all of these high grade zones that Vale had intersected in their drilling. If you flick through to the next slide, just looking at Jaguar South in particular, as I say, probably 60% of our work's been done there to date. There's over 45 drill holes into this area alone with 600 metres of strike. You can see the light blue triangles there being the downhole EM conductor plates. And what we do see is there's a really strong correlation between the high grade nickel intersections and these downhole EM conductors, which is a great targeting tool for us. So as we drill more holes, we have our own downhole equipment on site. We can do those surveys, extend the plates, and then obviously continue on with the drilling. More recently, we've actually, put out a bunch of results, which I think has probably spiked the interest of the market more generally. And you can sort of see those light yellow boxes there, which is the more recent drilling with some of the grades in there. So we've hit 22 metres at 2.65% nickel from only 22 metres depth. And I think that's one of the really unique things about this deposit. It's a hydrothermal deposit. It's very different to the magmatic deposits that you see out of Western Australia. But for us, we get a lot of this mineralisation coming very close to surface, and we think that we'll be able to start our project on open pittable material based on some high grade mineralisation, and that's a bit of a rare beast in the nickel sulphide market. Next slide. Just sort of these 4 sections run from the west to the east on that previous plan map. I'll let you sort of read through those at your leisure, but you can sort of see on the very left side there, 34 metres at 3.3% nickel, very close to surface. And in the third slide, you can see that 22 metres at 2.65%. So there's high grade zones that are close to surface. You can see how they are all now starting to hang together, and we've got a lot of confidence in what we can put together in a JORC resource, and we'd expect that to be coming, as I say, at the end of June. One of the other things to note here, I guess, is these light blue lines are the EM conductor plates. They do extend well beyond the depths of drilling, which gives us great confidence that as we drill deeper, that we'll actually be able to continue to intersect the high grade mineralisation and massive sulphides. We've really targeted, I guess, the top 300 metres of mineralisation where the known quantities are. We've been infilling and extending that mineralisation at Jaguar, and we've had really great success to date with most holes hitting all grade mineralisation. The other area that we drilled concurrently with Jaguar South was Onsapreta. So if we flip to the next slide. And that was in the northern part of the tenement package. Again, getting very consistent high-grade results coming through. You'll note that middle section there, there's an intersection of 15 at nearly 3% nickel with 10 metres at over 4. We've drilled along strike from that. We've hit that mineralisation with good grades. And, again, we're seeing a really great opportunity to be able to start mining here in an open pit scenario before having to look to go underground. Onset Predator does have good continuity. We see that as we drill deeper. The deepest drill hole there in that middle section is sort of the 18 metres at 2 with another 8 metres at 2. And that's a Vale hole. We just haven't gone any deeper than that at this stage. But once again, you can see the downhole conductor plates extending well beyond the depth of current drilling. So a lot of opportunity for us to extend the mineralised zone with further drilling, but up until now we haven't needed to go that deep. Next slide. Right now we are drilling at Jaguar Central and Jaguar North, and I guess this is more of the same in the similar vein to how we see the Jaguar South deposit areas. There's a number of high-grade intersections here. This is all historical drilling from Vale. So again, if you look in the western portion of that tenement, you can sort of see 31 metres at nearly 2.5% from only 15 metres depth. You can move along strike and there's another 12 at 3 and then go along again and you've got this 26 metres at 2. So there's a whole raft of high quality intersections, and remembering that these are on 100-metre line spacings, the Vale drilling, and we're now coming in and trying to, ensure that consistency is there. We certainly saw the consistency with the Jaguar South deposit, and we're now looking to replicate that same sort of success at Jaguar Central and Jaguar North. Next slide. Just sort of more, I guess, on the not really regional, but on the tenement package itself, out to the western portion of the tenement, we haven't really had any historical drilling out there. There are a number of targets that we really do like. We're doing a lot of the low-level exploration work there now. We've infilled the ground magnetics. We're infilling the soils and the geochemistry. We'll do fixed loop EM survey work out there and get ourselves ready with some drill targets. But there's a couple of regional structures that run through this tenement package, which drive a lot of the mineralisation that you see in the Carajás mineral province, and that's sort of those zones where we're feeling very confident that we can have some exploration success. So from a project point of view, right now we're looking to put together the maiden JORC resource, and then from that we'll look to extend that with deeper drilling in the known deposit areas and also extending that with some of these new targets. Next slide. Since we acquired the project, we've been undertaking metallurgical test work. We've had a number of composite samples sent through to ALS in Perth. That work's been going very well. We've had plus 80% nickel recoveries on a 16% nickel concentrate, good iron to MgO ratio, no arsenic. So from a product point of view, we're very comfortable with what we're going to be able to produce. Part of the deal structure that we had with Vale to acquire this is that they have a right to look at the offtake. So for us, it's pretty exciting to have someone like that looking at it. We are able to ensure that we get arm's length market-based pricing in relation to that. So, all in all, that aspect of the project development looks reasonably comfortable. Next slide. Is just looking at the logistics and the infrastructure. I think I touched upon it probably a little bit earlier, but where we're located, we base ourselves out of Tucumã. It's a population of about 50,000. You can sort of see the Onset Puma ferro-nickel plant only 15 kilometres away from our project area. That's got 230 kV power running into there. There's sealed roads all the way out to there. So whilst we are sort of remote, as in from the coastline, there is actually a lot of infrastructure in this region which allows project development to occur pretty smoothly. You can see most of the area that we're dealing with is farmland, so no real problem with respect to any vegetation. So look, I guess high level, we're very active. We've been drilling since we acquired the project. That drilling will continue on as we sort of infill and extend known deposits and also test some of these newer targets. Right now we're working on the maiden JORC resource for the end of June. We'll then feed into completion of scoping study work by the end of Q3, early Q4 this year. and that we would expect would allow us to roll into pre-feasibility study activities, which will extend through to the middle of next year, and that'll be the point in time where we lodge all of our environmental licensing. So, you know, from an investment perspective, I think, you know, we've got a relatively low market cap for the stage of development of the project. There's a lot of data here. We're getting very good, consistent results. And I think there's it's an amazing opportunity to be able to bring on stream a new nickel sulfide development. So thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions, I guess.
Yeah, Darren, thank you for that. We do have a couple of questions. One's in regards to Vale. Why do they sell an asset like this?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, it comes down to just size and scale. They've adopted what they call a mini mines model in the Carajás. They can't be doing everything there. Their hurdle to get a new project up and running is obviously very significant. You know, when you look at the size of something like a Salobo mine or a S11D, those, you know, they have seriously big deposits. And I think they did the work here and it just didn't quite get there as far as the volume and the amount of, I guess, of material that they needed to be able to move. You know, they are very strong on moving a lot of dirt and, you know, obviously being able to develop assets that are lower grade, more disseminated. But, you know, for us, we can focus in on the high grade. And look, for me, I think it's, you know, we try to replicate what groups like Mincor and IGO and Panoramic have done, where they've picked up assets off a major, haven't quite met their hurdles, and then look to be able to use that and elevate ourselves into that mid-tier mining cap space. And we think we can do that here with Vale.
And another thing, another question, which is probably very topical, is Brazil's the COVID-19 hotspot at the moment.
Yep.
How's your company managing that aspect?
Yeah, look, I mean, right from the outset, because obviously having a Australian listening, Australian background, Australian executives there, you know, we've adopted all of the protocols that we would have if we were operating here. I think that's been very successful for our company, and it's allowed us to continue to undertake drilling activity right through to now. We're still drilling at the moment. You know, more broadly, obviously the COVID situation in Brazil is not great. But all we can do is manage our own patch, I guess, in relation to that. And, you know, we're working with the local health authorities and trying to assist them where we can to, you know, adopt what would be considered best practice. And, you know, I think that's kept our employees relatively safe. You know, we've, I guess, scaled down our drilling activity from what we started with. We had 3 rigs on double shift. We pulled that back to the 2 rigs on single shift. And that's really just about controlling, you know, the amount of people that are flying through the project site and through that area at any one time.
Great, Darren. Another great story in the nickel space, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes our webinar series today. We'll be back next week on a Friday. Thank you for your time. Copies, we have recorded this webinar, so copies will be available on ShareCafe probably by the end of the week. So thanks for your time.